Ethan had always been curious. That morning on Vega 9, his curiosity had pulled him farther from the safety of the colony than he had ever gone before. The sun barely broke through the pale lavender mist that clung to the strange towering trees. Blue moss covered the ground like a soft carpet, and alien flowers with glowing tips swayed gently in the windless air. Ethan's boots sank slightly into the moss with every step. He was following the trail of his survey drone, which had malfunctioned and crashed somewhere beyond the river ridge. Normally, he would have waited for a retrieval team, but he hated waiting. And he hated leaving things broken. The forest was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Birds or creatures of the alien world were silent, and the wind itself seemed to hold its breath. Ethan adjusted the strap of his satchel and pushed past a thick fern, stepping over twisted roots. Then a sound froze him in place. It was not the sound of his own breathing or the faint hum of the drone's last transmission. It was a sharp, pained cry and a sound that was not human. It was melodic, almost like a song being cut short by sudden pain. Ethan's heart thumped harder in his chest. He moved cautiously toward the noise, every instinct screaming that he might be walking into danger. He parted the thick underbrush, and there she was. A woman, or at least something like a woman. She knelt by a fallen tree, her body trembling. Her skin shimmered in silvery tones that caught the dim light, almost as if she were made of metal and water at once. Her hair floated in fine strands like liquid metal in zero gravity. Blood, bright teal and glowing faintly, dripped from a jagged piece of metal embedded in her thigh, staining the moss. She was naked except for scraps of shattered armor and intricate war paint across her chest and face. Their eyes met. Hers were golden, bright and fierce, filled with fear and a wild, untamed pride. Ethan froze, unsure whether she would attack or flee. I'm not going to hurt you, Ethan said softly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. She hissed, a sharp, alien sound, then clutched her leg and whimpered. Pain twisted her expression. Despite her fear, she made no move to run. Her eyes never left his. Ethan's rational mind told him to retreat, to call for help, to leave this alien alone. But his heart, stubborn, human, caring, urged him forward. He knelt beside her, his medkit trembling slightly in his hands. "Let me help," he said. His voice was calm, though his own nerves buzzed. She flinched when he touched the wound, her muscles stiffening, but she did not push him away. Carefully, Ethan cleaned the jagged metal from her flesh using antiseptic foam to stop the bleeding. The alien warrior hissed again when the foam touched her skin, but he could see her body relax slowly. "You fix me," she whispered, voice strange and broken. The translator in his earpiece tried to catch her words. "I just did what anyone would do," Ethan replied. Her golden eyes narrowed. "Not anyone. Human. Kind. Strange, but kind." Ethan swallowed a laugh at the contradiction, an insult and a compliment at the same time. He studied her carefully. Despite her wild appearance, there was something vulnerable in her posture, something he recognized. When she tried to stand, her strength failed her. Ethan caught her, supporting her weight. Their bodies were close, and for a heartbeat the forest disappeared around them. Her breathing was rapid. His own heart raced. "You touched Draskin warrior," she said, voice trembling. "Only mate may touch." Ethan blinked, confusion crashing over him. "Mate? I'm not..." Before he could finish, she pressed her hand to his chest, a gesture that burned through his mind and soul in a way he couldn't explain. The translator buzzed softly, trying to interpret, but the meaning went beyond words. That single touch was sacred. That single touch, a bond in her culture, would mark him forever. A bond he didn't understand yet, but one that would soon change his life completely. Ethan stared at her, awe and fear mingling in his chest. She gazed back with fierce golden eyes, unyielding, proud, yet vulnerable. For the first time, he understood that curiosity had led him not to a drone, but to something far more dangerous and extraordinary, an alien warrior, wounded, naked, and completely dependent on him. And at that moment, deep in the strange forest of Vega 9, Ethan knew life would never be the same again. Days passed slowly in the strange silence of the Vega 9 forest. Ethan stayed close to Karina, though he was careful not to overwhelm her. She remained cautious, moving with a grace that reminded him of a predator, swift, strong, and completely self-contained. Her body healed slowly, but he could see the pain linger in the tense lines of her muscles, in the way her golden eyes darted around whenever anyone approached. Karina spoke little, But when she did, her words carried a weight Ethan could feel even through the translator. Human. Weak, she said one evening, watching him carefully as he tried to fashion a splint for her leg. But you heal me. Strange strength, Ethan smiled softly. I guess healing doesn't always need strength. Sometimes. It needs patience. She tilted her head, studying him. Her gaze was intense, sharp like a blade. Ethan realized that her world must be very different from his. She lived by rules he could barely imagine. Strength, honor, survival. And yet when she looked at him, there was something more than suspicion there, something curious. At first he worried he was intruding on her territory. She was a warrior and he was human, fragile, small, untrained for the dangers of her world. But Karina didn't push him away. She allowed him to sit near her, to feed her, to talk quietly while she rested. She even let him wrap her wound when she couldn't reach it herself. Every small act felt like an enormous trust. One night after the alien moons had risen high in the violet sky, Karina finally spoke more openly. You human, stay near me. Why? Ethan shrugged, trying to hide his uncertainty. Because I can help. Because no one should be hurt alone, and because I don't want to leave you like that. Her golden eyes softened slightly, the sharp edges of her expression fading. Human, different from others, they would watch me die. You try to save me. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't expected. He had been trained to fix machines, to repair circuits, to solve problems with logic. But this was helping a living being, an alien being, and stirred something deeper. Something human, something that reached beyond fear, beyond curiosity. Karina tried to stand one evening, testing her strength. She wavered, nearly falling, and Ethan caught her just in time. Their bodies pressed close together. His heart thundered in his chest, and he could feel her pulse, fierce and alive. You. Touch Draskan warrior, she said, voice low, almost a whisper. Only mate may touch, Ethan blinked. His mind raced. Mate? I'm not. She held his gaze, her eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Touch, bond, eternal. He felt the weight of her words, even if he didn't fully understand them. He had only wanted to help her, to keep her alive, but in her world, his touch carried meaning he could never have imagined. It was a promise, a claim, a bond. For days he thought about it. Every time she looked at him with those golden eyes, he felt drawn closer. There was fear, yes, and hers and his. But there was also respect and something like admiration. She was proud, unyielding, strong in a way humans could never be. Yet she allowed herself to rely on him. And that reliance, that fragile trust, was more powerful than any physical strength he had ever known. Ethan began to notice small things. The way she flinched at sudden sounds. The way she adjusted her posture to hide her wound. The quiet sighs she made when she thought no one was watching. She was a warrior, yes. But she was also vulnerable, and somehow, that vulnerability drew him in more than her strength ever could. One evening, as the twin moons cast silver light across the forest floor, Karina finally placed her hand on his chest again. Ethan's breath caught. Her touch was firm, deliberate yet gentle, a warrior's gesture, a bond in her culture. You saved me, she said simply, her golden eyes locked onto his. Human, mine now. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't understand fully what she meant. He had not chosen this bond, she had in her way. And yet in that moment he realized that the line between fear and trust, between alien and human, had begun to blur. He could not predict what would happen next. He only knew this: he could not leave her, and she could not be left alone. And as he sat there under alien stars beside a warrior whose world was entirely different from his own, Ethan understood that curiosity had led him not to adventure, but to something far more dangerous and far more extraordinary. A connection that could change both of their lives forever. The forest was alive with movement one morning. But it wasn't the gentle sway of alien leaves or the rustle of small creatures. It was the heavy, deliberate steps of Karina's people, her tribe. Ethan had sensed their presence the night before, a faint hum of communication among unseen shapes. But nothing could have prepared him for the sudden sight of towering Draskan warriors emerging from the mist. Their armor was jagged and bone-like, decorated with glowing runes, and their eyes, sharp and golden like Karina's, locked on him immediately. Human, Karina hissed, stepping in front of him, her hand brushing his chest in the instinctive gesture of protection. Her golden eyes blazed with warning. Ethan's stomach twisted. He had only known her for days, Yet he could feel the power of her presence, the way her body radiated authority and danger all at once. The warriors circled them slowly, their weapons humming faintly in the mist. Ethan's mind raced. He had no idea what these alien beings expected of him, or what customs governed their world. Karina spoke quickly to them in her melodic, harsh language. Her words were sharp, commanding, but the warriors paid little attention. Their eyes, focused and unblinking, rested on him. Finally, the chieftain appeared, Karina's mother. She was taller than the tallest warrior Ethan had seen, her armor gleaming with intricate carvings, her eyes piercing gold. She stopped in front of him, and the mist seemed to part around her presence. "This human touched my daughter?" Her voice was low, controlled, but every syllable carried the weight of authority. Karina lowered her gaze. Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the silent plea not to punish him. "He saved me," she whispered. "He healed me. He did not harm me." The chieftain's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat, Ethan felt exposed, small, entirely at the mercy of these towering beings. Then the warrior standing beside her, one of Karina's older siblings, laughed, a deep rumbling sound that seemed to shake the mist around them. Soon all the surrounding warriors joined, their laughter echoing like thunder across the forest floor. "Then it is settled," the chieftain said finally, her voice slicing through the laughter. Ethan froze as her words sank in. "A life debt has been made. By the law of the Draskin, you are bound to her. You are her mate, human. Accept this or die." Ethan's mind struggled to comprehend. "Wait, no, I didn't." Karina's mother raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. The weight of authority pressed down on him, heavier than the gravity of Vega 9 itself. Ethan looked at Karina, whose golden eyes were unreadable. There was pride there, yes, but also resignation. She had accepted this law without question. That night the tribe celebrated. Fires blazed, casting long, flickering shadows across the mossy ground. Music, deep, rhythmic, alien, filled the air. Ethan sat quietly, overwhelmed. Humans in his world had festivals and rituals, but nothing had ever made him feel so small and so significant at the same time. He had come looking for a drone for a simple task, and had instead been caught in a web of honor, law, and alien custom he barely understood. Karina sat beside him in the quiet moments, her body close but not touching. Ethan studied her carefully. She was proud, yes, but there was also something tender in her eyes as she looked at him. Gratitude, trust, perhaps even a hint of curiosity. "You stay," she said softly. Her voice was low, almost afraid that anyone else would hear. "You, my mate." Now Ethan swallowed. He wanted to protest, to explain that he didn't understand, that he wasn't ready for this. But the truth was simple, he couldn't leave her side. Her trust had become something heavier than fear, something he could not ignore. Over the next few hours he watched the tribe's rituals, their dances and chants. He could see the unyielding loyalty, the sharp rules that governed their world. And somewhere in the middle of the alien music, alien faces and alien law, he realized something profound. Karina's world was brutal, yes, but it was also beautiful, filled with loyalty, honor, and heart. That night, Ethan lay under the twin moons of Vega 9, thinking about what had happened. He had not chosen this life. He had stumbled into it unprepared, untrained, and completely human. And yet in the way Karina looked at him, in the way her people treated the bond he now shared with her, Ethan felt a spark of something he had never felt before. Belonging. It was a dangerous belonging, one forged in alien law and tribal honor. But it was also real, and deep in his chest a seed of courage began to grow, a seed that would push him to do things he had never imagined possible, for her people, and perhaps for himself. Life among the Draskin tribe was unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. The mornings were filled with the hum of activity, the sharp clanging of weapons being tested, and the rhythmic chants of warriors preparing for the day. Every sound, every movement carried purpose and strength. And in the center of it all, Karina moved with an effortless power that left Ethan in awe. She was always alert, her golden eyes scanning everything, every motion precise, every step deliberate. At first, Ethan struggled to keep up. Humans were fragile in the eyes of the Draskin, untrained and weak compared to their towering forms. He felt awkward, out of place, fumbling with their rituals, mispronouncing their words, and constantly worried about offending someone. Yet Karina never scolded him. Instead, she guided him with quiet patience, correcting him gently, offering small nods of encouragement. "You, human," she said one evening as they sat by the fire, the twin moons casting silver light over the forest. "Different, but you try. You learn." Ethan smiled softly, brushing dirt from his sleeve. "I have to try. You saved yourself, but I need to understand your world too." Karina's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. It was subtle, but Ethan felt his chest tighten. There was pride there, but also something deeper, a trust he had not earned fully yet had been freely given. Over the next days, Ethan began learning the ways of the tribe. He learned to recognize the patterns in their language, to handle simple tools, and even to move quietly through the forest without tripping over the glowing moss. The warriors watched him with suspicion at first, but over time, some nodded in quiet approval when he managed even small tasks. Every success brought him closer to understanding, closer to belonging. Karina, meanwhile, became both his guide and his anchor. She taught him to read the signs in the trees, to anticipate danger, and to respect the silent rules of the forest. And in quiet moments when the rest of the tribe was busy, she would sit near him and speak softly. "You, stay," she said one night, her golden eyes reflecting the firelight. "You do not leave, even if afraid." "I'm not afraid," Ethan said, though the truth was more complicated. "I just don't know if I belong here." Karina's hand found his, brushing against his chest in the same gesture that had bound them together. "We belong where your heart chooses." Ethan's throat tightened. He had never felt such weight in a simple touch. It was more than trust. It was connection. And he realized in that moment that he didn't want to leave. He couldn't. Days turned into weeks and the bond between them deepened. Ethan began to see Karina not just as a warrior, but as a person. Fierce, proud, but also vulnerable in ways she rarely showed. He noticed the quiet sighs she made when she thought no one was looking, the slight tremble in her hands when recalling past battles, and the gentle way she studied the stars, almost as if seeking answers from them. And she noticed him too. Sometimes he would catch her watching him, her golden eyes softening, full of questions she did not ask aloud. There was a subtle shift in her behavior, less caution, more curiosity, more affection. One evening, as a storm rolled in, Ethan and Karina found themselves alone. Rain pelted the cliffs around their camp and the wind rattled the trees. Karina's face was lit by the soft glow of the fire, her golden eyes unreadable. "You, human," she said finally, her voice low and steady. "You risk more than body, heart." Also, Ethan swallowed. "I don't even know what I'm risking. But I know I can't leave. Not you. Not here." Her eyes softened. She leaned closer, pressing her forehead lightly against his chest. "Then, heart is yours," she whispered. Ethan's breath caught. He understood finally that their bond was no longer just an accident, a touch, or a law. It had grown into something far stronger: trust, care, and something dangerously close to love. In the days that followed, Ethan realized the truth. He had crossed into another world, a world of warriors, law, and honor, but he had also discovered a place he could call home. Karina's world was brutal, yes, and the challenges ahead were still unknown. Yet among the alien cliffs, the silver moss, and the twin moons of Vega 9, he felt something he had never felt before, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and a bond that tied him to a warrior who had chosen him as her own. And deep in his heart, Ethan knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, he would face it by her side. Ethan had expected the tribe to observe him, maybe even to ignore him. What he hadn't expected was a formal challenge, a test that would decide whether he was worthy to remain by Karina's side. The chieftain, Karina's mother, summoned him to the central clearing at dawn. The morning mist curled around the massive stone pillars, and the warriors of the tribe stood silent, forming a circle. Every eye was on him. "You claim the bond," the chieftain said, her golden eyes sharp and unwavering. "But in our law, the mate must prove strength of heart and courage. You, human, will face the trial of blades." Ethan froze. I don't know if I—" "You will face it," the chieftain interrupted. "Or leave this world. And do not think the forest will spare you." Karina's hand brushed his shoulder. Her eyes were intense, full of something he could not name. Pride, worry, hope. You can do it, she said softly. You, human, but heart strong. I trust you. Her words were all he needed. Despite his fear, he nodded, swallowing hard. I'll try. The trial of blades was unlike anything Ethan had ever imagined. The arena was not a simple battleground. It was a stretch of forest cleared of trees, jagged rocks scattered, and the air thick with tension. In the center stood a Draskan warbeast, massive, covered in bone armor, muscles rippling under silvered skin. Its eyes glowed like molten gold, and it hissed, testing the human's courage. Ethan's fingers tightened around the spear the tribe had given him. He was human, small, fragile. And yet, he could feel Karina's gaze, steady and unwavering, rooting him to the ground. He breathed deeply, remembering the bond, the trust, and the moment she had placed her hand on his chest. The beast charged. Its roar shook the clearing. Ethan dove to the side, narrowly avoiding its crushing claws. His heart pounded. Every muscle screamed, but he forced his mind to focus. He could not fight like a Draskan. He would have to fight with human cunning, with speed, with intelligence. He led the beast over rocks, ducked under swinging limbs, and used the terrain to his advantage. He noticed the creature's weak points, gaps in the bone armor, flashes of vulnerability under the shoulder behind the knees. Each movement was precise, calculated, careful. Sweat stung his eyes, and the strain in his arms was immense, but he did not stop. He could not. Hours seemed to pass in mere minutes. The warriors watched in tense silence, some leaning forward, whispering to each other. Karina stood at the edge of the circle, her golden eyes wide, every line of her body taut with anxiety. Finally, Ethan saw his chance. The war beast lunged again, and he sidestepped, planting the spear at its throat. The creature froze, struggled, then collapsed. Silence fell over the clearing. Ethan's chest heaved. His body shook from exhaustion, adrenaline, and relief. Then came the sound of roaring, the tribe erupting in cheers. Warriors pounded their chests, clashing weapons, their voices echoing through the forest. Even the chieftain stepped forward, her expression unreadable at first, then softening. Karina ran to him, golden eyes glistening with tears. You fought like Draskan, she whispered, voice trembling. You, heart strong, mate strong. Ethan bent, catching his breath. I just wanted to survive. And to stay by your side. She pressed her forehead against his, a gesture of honor and trust. You proved more than strength. You proved soul, and soul matters most. The chieftain's gaze swept over him once more, lingering. Then she spoke in her deep, commanding voice. You have faced the trial of blades. You have survived, and you have shown courage and heart. You are worthy. Ethan's relief was overwhelming. Every muscle in his body ached, but the exhaustion was nothing compared to the feeling of acceptance, of belonging, of having earned the trust of this proud, alien people. Karina stepped closer, her golden eyes locked onto his. You, human, my mate. Now in truth. Not law, but choice. Ethan smiled, his heart swelling. In that moment, he understood something profound. It was not strength alone that mattered. It was courage, heart, and the willingness to protect those you care for, no matter the cost. And as the twin moons of Vega 9 rose higher in the sky, Ethan and Karina stood together, two beings from different worlds, bonded not just by law, but by trust, courage, and something far deeper. The beginning of a shared life that neither had expected, yet both had found. The quiet peace of the Vega 9 forest was shattered one night. Ethan was sleeping under a canopy of silver leaves when the alarm rang. A deep, resonant horn that vibrated through the cliffs and shook the moss underfoot. Karina was already awake, golden eyes flashing with alarm and determination. Rival tribes! she growled, her voice low and sharp. They come for us. Ethan's heart leapt. He had faced the trial of blades, but he had never fought alongside a tribe in full battle. This was different. This was real. And Karina was not just a warrior. She was a leader. The Draskin warrior surged into the clearing, organized and precise. Ethan followed her, carrying what little equipment he had been allowed, a few human tools, a makeshift shield, and a small drone he had repaired. The rival tribe arrived, swiftly, their banners waving in the wind, eyes full of aggression and the promise of destruction. Karina barked orders, and the Draskin responded instantly. Ethan watched in awe as she led her warriors, her movements fluid and deadly, every decision measured and exact. She fought at the front, her body a blur of strength and skill. And, yet he noticed the subtle wince when a rival's blade grazed her shoulder. "Stay safe," she shouted when she saw him hesitate at the edge of the battle. Ethan wanted to obey, but he could not. He could not simply watch her risk everything while he hid. He activated his human tools. Drones lifted into the air, small shields deployed, and traps he had set sprang into motion. Energy beams cut through the fog, startling the rival warriors, giving the Draskin a momentary advantage. The tide began to turn. The rival warriors were skilled, but they were unprepared for human ingenuity. Ethan ran across the battlefield, using his wits to anticipate enemy movements, directing drones to block paths and creating distractions. The Draskin began to recognize his value. This fragile human, small and seemingly weak, was changing the battle. Karina fought closer to him now, her golden eyes scanning for threats, every strike calculated. When a large enemy warrior charged her from the side, Ethan threw a small explosive device, sending the attacker sprawling. She glanced at him briefly, a flash of gratitude passing through her fierce expression. Hours seemed to blur. The rival tribe retreated finally, defeated, disoriented by human tactics and Draskin ferocity combined. The forest was silent again, except for the heavy breathing of warriors and the soft crackle of distant fires. Karina, bruised but standing tall, found Ethan at the edge of the clearing. Rain had begun to fall lightly, and the silver leaves shimmered under the moons. Her golden eyes shone with emotion. "You risk all. Not just life, but heart," she said. Ethan, soaked and exhausted, smiled weakly. "I couldn't just watch. Not when you were fighting for all of this." "For all of them." She stepped closer, pressing a hand to his chest. "Human. You fight not like warrior. You fight like mate." Her words struck him deeply. He had been afraid, uncertain, unsure of his place. But in that moment he realized that strength was not only measured by skill in combat. It was measured by courage, by ingenuity, by willingness to protect others, even when the odds seemed impossible. The tribe gathered around, warriors patting him on the back, some laughing, some nodding in approval. The chieftain approached, her eyes softening as she studied him. "You have fought with courage," she said. "Not Draskin courage, but human courage. And courage binds hearts." Karina reached for his hand, squeezing it firmly. "Your world may be small, but your heart is vast. Human, my mate, not only by law but by choice." Ethan felt something swell in his chest, pride, love, and an overwhelming sense of belonging. He had stumbled into this alien world, feared and uncertain, but he had proven himself, not only to her people but to himself. As the rain fell gently, washing the forest in silver light, Ethan made a choice. He could leave, return to the humans on Vega 9, return to the life he had known. But looking at Karina, looking at the warriors who had accepted him despite his small size and human fragility, he knew he could never go back. "I choose to stay," he said softly, eyes locking with hers. "Here, with you." Karina's golden eyes softened, a rare, full smile spreading across her face. Then, heart is bound. Not by law, but by choice. Human. Mine forever. And in the silent aftermath, as the twin moons rose higher in the alien sky, Ethan understood something profound. Humanity was not defined by size, strength, or instinct alone. It was defined by heart, courage, and the ability to love fiercely, even in a world that seemed alien, impossible, and dangerous. Weeks passed after the battle, but peace on Vega 9 was fragile. Ethan had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the Draskin tribe, the dawn rituals, the quiet conversations with Karina, the shared meals beside glowing fires. He had earned respect not through brute strength but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. Yet even with this newfound place among them, questions lingered. His human colleagues might come searching for him, and the world he had left behind still called him. One evening, under the twin moons, Karina led him to a cliff overlooking the alien forest. The wind was gentle, carrying the scents of moss and rain-soaked trees. Her golden eyes shone in the moonlight, and for a moment, Ethan felt the fragile weight of the universe between them. Two beings from entirely different worlds. Standing together, human, she said softly, her voice carrying a weight that made his chest tighten. They may come. Your world may call you, but here, hard is choice, not law. Ethan swallowed hard. He had thought of leaving, returning to humans who would never understand him, never see what he had learned here. But looking at Karina, seeing her strength and vulnerability, he realized that the choice had already been made. His heart belonged here. With her, I choose here, he said finally, reaching for her hand. His fingers brushed hers warm and alive. With you, with this tribe, with everything I found here. Karina's golden eyes glimmered, and she pressed her forehead gently against his chest. Then, made in truth, not only by law, but by soul. A gentle warmth spread through Ethan's chest. All the fear, all the uncertainty of the past weeks seemed to melt away. The alien world was no longer strange. The tribe was no longer intimidating. Karina was no longer untouchable. She had allowed him into her world, her heart, her life, and he would never leave. Over the following days, preparations began for the formal recognition of their bond. The Draskin tribe, who had once towered over him with skepticism, now looked at him with acceptance. Warriors nodded as he walked through the clearing. Even the chieftain, Karina's mother, gave him a rare approving glance. Ethan felt a surge of pride, but it was tempered by humility. He was not one of them by birth, yet they had chosen to see his heart, and that made him part of their world. When the ceremony came, it was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. Fires blazed in concentric circles, casting shadows across the towering trees. The tribe chanted, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the forest and into Ethan's chest. Karina stood before him, radiant and fierce, her golden eyes locked onto his. The chieftain raised her hand and silence fell. This human has faced trials, danger, and doubt. He has proven courage, heart, and loyalty. Today, he is chosen by Karina, not only by law, but by choice. Karina stepped closer, her hand finding his. You are mine, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. And I am yours. Ethan's throat tightened. He could feel the weight of the moment, the gravity of the bond, the trust and love that had grown between them in so little time yet felt like a lifetime. And I am yours, he replied. As they pressed their foreheads together, the twin moons shone down, casting silver light across the clearing. The tribe erupted in cheers, but Ethan hardly noticed. All he could see, all he could feel, was Karina, the warrior who had trusted him, who had allowed him to touch her, to fight beside her, to share her world. He realized then something profound. Humanity was more than fragility, more than weakness. It was heart, courage, the ability to love fiercely, to protect, to choose when all seemed impossible. And in this alien world, among these proud and fierce warriors, Ethan had proven that the human heart could stand beside the strongest of them all. Karina's hand squeezed his, grounding him. Human, mate. Together. Forever. Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known, a certainty he had never imagined. Together, he whispered, letting the words sink into the night, into the tribe, into himself. And as the fires blazed and the forest echoed with song, Ethan knew that he had found more than adventure. He had found love, belonging, and a place where humanity mattered, not for strength or skill, but for heart. Under the alien moons of Vega 9, a human and a warrior stood side by side. Two worlds, once so different, now united, And in that union, the Draskin learned something powerful. Humans were not weak. They were capable of courage, of love, and of forging bonds stronger than steel. Bonds that could change worlds. Ethan had stumbled into the alien forest as a stranger, but he would never leave as one. He had found his mate, his home, and his heart, and that was more than enough. The end.